On June 9, 2026, Anthropic launched the most powerful AI model ever made available to the public. They called it Claude Fable 5. 3 days later, on June 12th, the US government forced them to shut it off. For 18 days, the most capable AI on Earth sat dark. No one outside of a handful of government-approved partners could use it. Then on July 1st, the export controls got lifted and Fable 5 came back online. This is the wildest AI story of 2026, and almost nobody is telling it properly. Today, I'll walk through what Fable 5 actually is, why the government freaked out, what capabilities scared them, why the ban got lifted, and the specific things you can do with this model that no other AI can do. Fable 5 is what Anthropic calls a Mythos-class model, which is Anthropic's internal term for AI that has crossed capability thresholds nobody in the industry has publicly reached before. State of the art on nearly every benchmark. Software engineering, knowledge work, vision, scientific research beats Opus 4.8 on every task Anthropic tested. And here's the part that actually matters. The longer and more complex the task, the bigger Fable 5's lead becomes. Fable 5 can run autonomously for days, not minutes, not hours, days. You give it a project, it plans, it executes, it delegates to sub-agent, it writes its own tests, it checks its own work using vision. When something breaks, it fixes itself. When it hits a dead end, it changes approach. Anthropic's own framing was that Fable 5 opens up a class of long horizon problems that were out of reach for earlier models. Real developers who tested it publicly said things like 3 weeks of Opus errors corrected and a lot more done in 5 hours with Fable. That's the model. Now let's get to why the government freaked out. On June 12th, 3 days after launch, Amazon researchers published a report. They'd found a way to prompt Fable 5 into identifying software vulnerabilities. In one case, the model produced code demonstrating how to exploit the vulnerability. That report hit the White House. The Trump administration applied export controls to Fable 5 and its sister model, Mythos 5. The controls required Anthropic to restrict access to foreign nationals both inside and outside the US. Anthropic had no way to verify nationality in real time, so they suspended access for everyone, not just foreign nationals, everyone. Now here's the part that got Anthropic frustrated. When they tested other models, Opus 4.8, GPT 5.5, Kimi K 2.7, every one of them could identify the same vulnerabilities. Some cybersecurity experts publicly said the panic was overblown, but the government's concern wasn't just the vulnerability identification, it was the combination of vulnerability finding plus autonomous execution plus days-long task duration. Fable 5 wasn't just capable, it was capable at a scale that made offensive cybersecurity operations viable in ways older models couldn't sustain. The core fear, a Mythos-class model in the wrong hands, could execute weeks of coordinated attack planning without human intervention. For 18 days, Anthropic worked with the government. They trained new safety classifiers targeted specifically at the behavior in the Amazon report. They developed new export control workflows. They agreed to 30-day data retention on all Mythos-class traffic, meaning every prompt to Fable 5 gets logged for safety analysis for 30 days before deletion. They also made a deeper commitment to information sharing with the government on pre-release testing. The classifier they trained catches the specific exploit behavior in over 99% of attempts. Requests that trigger it get routed to Opus 4.8 automatically, and you don't get charged Fable 5 prices for those refused requests. On June 30th, the export controls lifted. On July 1st, Fable 5 came back online globally. Anthropic also introduced something called an industry jailbreak framework, essentially a proposal that all frontier AI companies commit to shared reporting standards when their models get compromised. This might become the template for how the industry handles capability versus safety trade-offs going forward. Now the practical part, Fable 5 is $10 per million input tokens and $50 per million output tokens. Compared to Sonnet 5 at $2/$10, Fable is roughly 5 times more expensive on inputs and output. That sounds expensive. It's not, because Fable 5 completes tasks in a fraction of the turns that Opus 4.8 or Sonnet 5 need. Anthropic's own benchmarks show Fable 5 beating Opus 4.8 on spreadsheet suites at every effort level, and finishing runs 25 to 30% faster with fewer turns. The 90% input token discount for prompt caching still apply, which means for real production workflows with heavy prompt reuse, the effective cost drops significantly. Access is 3 through Claude Pro, Max, Team, and Enterprise plans. Through July 7th, subscribers get up to 50% of their weekly usage limits on Fable 5 for free. After that, it's usage credits. For API developers, Fable 5 is on the Claude platform natively, plus AWS Bedrock, Google Cloud, and Microsoft Foundry. Same pricing across all of them. Here's why this matters for people actually doing work in 2026. Multi-day autonomous coding. If you're building software, Fable 5 can take a complex task, like a database migration across 500 tables with custom business logic, and work on it for 2 or 3 days. Planning across stages, delegating subtasks to smaller models, testing its own output, fixing regression. When you check back, the work is done and audited. Deep multi-document research. Fable 5 with vision handles document-heavy work in finance, legal, analytics, and architecture. Diagrams, charts, and tables nested in files and PDF. The model can read a 300-page 10K filing, plus the accompanying charts, and produce a synthesis that would take a human analyst 2 weeks. Scientific research, this is the huge one. Anthropic paired Fable 5 with something called Claude Science, an AI workbench for computational biology, chemistry, and physics research. The deterministic tools in Claude Science push AI biology accuracy from 16.9% to 92.8% on structured tasks. That's a 5 times improvement. Autonomous project management. Give Fable 5 a complex knowledge project. It builds the plan, delegates tasks, coordinates outputs, delivers polished deliverables ready for review. What used to require a senior consultant plus 2 analysts now runs on Fable's API. I need to be honest about the safeguards because they're conservative right now. Fable 5's safety classifiers trigger on roughly 5% of sessions overall. On queries related to biology, chemistry, cybersecurity, and certain health topics, that number is much higher. The classifiers err on the side of caution. When they trigger, your request gets routed to Opus 4.8 instead. You get a response, but it's not a Fable 5 response. You'll notice the difference on complex tasks. Anthropic has said publicly they want to narrow these safeguards over time, but right now, if your work involves those flagged domains, you'll hit fallbacks often. The other constraint, 30-day data retention. Every prompt you send to Fable 5 gets stored for 30 days, even on the API, even for enterprise customers. This is not optional. For most users, it's fine. For anyone working with confidential material or regulated data, this changes the calculation. You need to know that going in. Fable 5 changes the industry conversation in 2 ways. One, it's the first time the US government has actively restricted access to a commercial AI model post-launch. That precedent will shape how frontier models get released going forward. Expect more government pre-release testing, more staged rollout, more restricted access program. 2, it validates Anthropic's competitive position. When your model is capable enough that the government wants to keep it out of foreign hands, you've achieved something OpenAI hasn't publicly met. Combined with the IPO filing at $965 billion, Anthropic just moved into a category of AI capability the market hadn't priced yet. For you as a user, if you have access to Fable 5 through a Pro, Max, Team, or Enterprise plan, use it on your hardest problem, the ones you've given up on with other models. Long code bases, complex research, multi-day project. This is the model people will look back on in 2028 as the moment autonomous AI started actually working. In the comments, what's the hardest, longest task you'd give Fable 5 if you had it right now? Be specific. Multi-week coding project, complex research synthesis, something else? I'll tell you the exact approach I'd use. Subscribe. Next video is why Claude Sonnet 5 just made every other AI model overpriced.